Welcome back to Veronica Live, and we are here with our first guest this morning. His name is Victor Avila, and he is running to be your next congressman in District 23 in Texas. And wow, Victor, you've got a lot going on in that state, so welcome to Veronica Live.
Thank you so much for having me.
So, Victor, tell us a little bit about your background, because you've kind of worked the law enforcement scene and what you've been doing the last few years in the great state of Texas.
Absolutely. I'm a retired special agent with Homeland Security Investigations under ICE. But I've also worked at different levels of the government, at the county level, state level, obviously the federal level, and international level as a U.S. diplomat in Mexico and in Europe. And so I bring a vast experience and broad experience, especially when it comes to our foreign policy, national security, and everything that affects our border security, which is my expertise. I'm also a subject matter expert in human trafficking investigations, which I did a lot while in Mexico, rescuing a lot of victims, women and children, and particularly from the sex slave trade of this human trafficking atrocities that continue to happen. But also dealt a lot with the cartels in Mexico, so I'm very well aware of the imminent threat that we face from them. I went through a horrific tragedy in my career while I served in Mexico. My partner and I were ambushed by a cartel, and Special Agent Jaime Zapata was tragically killed in the line of duty next to me. I survived being shot 3 times, and so
Oh, my
I'm here
goodness.
by the grace of God, and a lot of this thing that I'm trying to do, especially in this district in Texas, which, by the way, Texas 23 covers most of the border in Texas from San Antonio all the way to El Paso, and basically ground zero with what's happening at the border. And it's personal. It's also personal to me because I've seen the direction that we have, that this administration, I'm talking about the Biden administration, has taken us in the last 3 years, which is sometimes incomprehensible to me, how this has continued to happen, and not just illegal immigration. Obviously, we could talk about the numbers of illegal aliens coming into this country, but it's the public safety threat and national security threat and everything else that affects us throughout the country, by the way, not just in Texas. Happen to be in New York right now, and how they're being affected in Chicago and Maryland and Denver, and you can name almost any state now, and they've become a border state. They are now feeling the ripple effects at their healthcare systems, their criminal justice systems, and even their school systems.
Well, Victor, this week it came out that the number one issue for American voters is the border. And we've had millions of people come over. Fentanyl is a huge thing, plus all the crime, not only in Texas, but I know when we did talk yesterday, you said you were in New York City trying to see what's happening when these migrants run up there. I mean, or land in New York City after they take a bus or plane to get up there. I mean, I'm very, very concerned for Americans. How can we stop this? I ask people that are working in Texas and running for office and are in office, how do we stop this crisis?
Well, it's easy, actually, believe it or not. The initial stoppage of it would be very easy because people need to understand that the only thing that changed here was the ideology of this administration, and it's all has to do with policy, and it has to do with the stroke of a pen. It has nothing to do with legislation. It had nothing to do with Congress. They continue to blame Congress for whatever reason because they will not accept responsibility for what they have created. This is a chaos that they created. It's deliberate. Have no doubt about that. They removed a lot of the procedures and policies that were in place that were working. I tell you because we saw it. I've done this for 20 years, and they have purposely just undid all of that. And so what happened is the message went out to the world. Not to forget Mexico and Central America for a second here. It's the world that is coming over because now they're realizing, wait a minute, not only am I going to be allowed to come into the U.S., they're going to take care of me. They're going to give me shelter. They're going to give me health care. They're going to give me education, even possibly a job. But the big difference I want people to understand is the people coming now have a different view, a different ideology. They're coming with some sense of entitlement, than even when the ones that I used to arrest back in the day, more of the migrant or economic migrant that I would refer to as now. Most of these individuals, first of all, are single adult military age males. They don't want to assimilate to the United States. They don't want to be Americans like my parents did. My parents came to this country legally, but they assimilated. And assimilation means adopting the laws, following the Constitution, not being a public charge to the government, and working very, very hard for their family. That's not what we're seeing here now. These people want to be taken care of. They're still they'll fly their flag of their country, and we can't have it both ways. And we're at the breaking point. I think actually we're beyond the breaking point because these people, whether you like it or not, have to somehow be absorbed. They're here. They're human beings. The weather is super cold out here in New York, and they're going into the subways. They're going into shelters. There's just no hotels. There's just no more capacity. Well, guess what? We've been feeling that in Texas with the overcapacity for years, and now all these other cities are feeling it. But you brought something up very, very important, and that's crime. I'm the first one to tell you, not everyone that comes across is committing crimes, but we have a tremendously large amount of people committing crimes, property crimes, burglaries, even violent crimes. Just yesterday, there was a little girl that was raped by a Guatemalan national, and these cases continue to happen on a daily basis. Listen, we have enough crime in our country to deal with and a crime surge, and also kind of dealing with the fact that these people are not being prosecuted. There's no accountability. So when you add all that up, you're adding people from 150 different countries committing crimes. And I talk to a lot of police departments around the country, and they tell me, Victor, we can't absorb this, and we don't have more resources. We don't have more police officers. There is no more money in the budget, and so something gives. And you're absolutely right. It's the U.S. citizen that gets affected by public safety, by the fentanyl that continues to pour into this country and kill Americans, the methamphetamine epidemic that a lot of people don't talk about. And other drugs, by the way, are still flowing through that border, cocaine and heroin, making a huge comeback. And no one, not the Republicans, not the Democrats, no one is doing anything about it. And the blame game continues. And here we are, uh, literally watching it happen before our eyes.
Well, I guess what's shocking to me, Victor, is our Congressman Matt Gaetz this week on his Instagram posted a picture of all of these passports from nations all over that people just dump at the border. And I'm very worried about terrorism. We've got crime, but terrorism, that's huge too. So talk about that.
Oh my goodness, Congressman Matt Gates is 100% correct. I've seen those for years, and the reason why they drop them is because they don't want to be identified. Several reasons. One, they don't want to be identified. They provide the information that they want to provide to the Border Patrol when they get processed, and I say process with air quotes. It's not a true vetting process. Second of all, a lot of these individuals have already been granted asylum in other countries. Remember, especially the Venezuelans, a lot of the Venezuelans haven't lived in Venezuela for years. That's the number one question I ask them. I was just there right before Christmas, and I was asking the Venezuelans. They all tell me, "Oh, we're from Venezuela." I said, "Yeah, I know you're from Venezuela, but where have you actually been living the last several years?" And they'll come through and say, "Oh, yeah, actually, I've been living in Peru. I've been living in Ecuador. I've been living in Colombia." And they've established communities there. They've gotten married. They've had children, and all of a sudden, because they heard that the U.S. Government is allowing them in, they sold everything, and so you have these different types of groups coming through Eagle Pass, Texas. You probably have the poorest of the poorest coming through, and then in other parts like in Arizona, you have the ones that have money, the ones that have sold their belongings, and so what happens? You have these large number of groups that these special interest aliens that we talk about, SIAs, that are linked to terrorism, incorporating themselves into these caravans. They have been in, let me tell you, they've been in Mexico, a lot of them, for a long time. I interviewed them when I worked there, and it was very scary. But the difference back then is we had enforcement, and that enforcement doesn't exist today. And so you're right to be concerned about terrorism because ISIS, the Taliban, Hamas, Hezbollah, and you name the group, they have, just like you and I know it, they know it too. And they know that being in Mexico is as good as being in the U.S. And they are using that vulnerability to enter our country. And yes, are they here? Absolutely, they're here in the U.S. And so we've put that in the back burner for some reason. This administration doesn't see the threat. And believe it or not, I think the threat has been even greater with the cartels because the cartels have spilled over their violence a long time ago, and they've killed 100,000 Americans or more with fentanyl. And I don't remember any other terrorist organization doing that. And so we need to designate the cartels just like ISIS, just like Hamas, just like another terrorist organizations to be able to use other resources to take them down. So this border security issue, as you can tell, is very vast. It is multifaceted. We got illegal immigration. We got terrorism. We got national security, public safety. We have the court system. We have the NGOs, the non-governmental organizations that are making billions of dollars in the movement of these people. And so we have a lot of issues to tackle. Some will be easy to give the Border Patrol agents their job back and actually let them do their scope of their duties that they were trained to do. That doesn't exist right now, by the way. And so there's a lot of things that we could flip a switch and we'll be able to start changing it, but others will will take a little bit longer because this administration has really done an effort to fundamentally change the fabric of our country with the tremendous amounts of people coming into our neighborhoods.
Victor, this is co-host John Salek. I want to ask you a question about, Kamala Harris, the root cause person, who's supposedly our czar in charge of immigration, finding the root cause of the problem. But the numbers are just overwhelming. 250,000 in a month. And every 3 months, that's equal to one congressional district. And the question I have for you is that there's a root cause. There's something going on behind this. Why is the Democrat Party doing this? Why is Biden doing this? And I heard an interesting theory the other day about that they are using this as a way to replace population in states where they're having outflows. Like, one of the big stories in last year was the outflow from New York and California, the liberal states into the red states, to Texas and Florida and Georgia and places like that. And of course, that means New York and California lose congressional representation as the population drops. And the theory I heard was a lot of these immigrants are being pushed into New York and California and places like that to make up for this loss so they can maintain or even push their population numbers when the census is taken, because the census, that's what the thing about U.S. citizens, Trump wanted only U.S. citizens counted in the census. And that if they count all these illegals, that it's going to disproportionately add more population to the blue states and let them keep their congressional districts, as opposed to the influence, going to Florida and Texas where the delegations get bigger, because that's where the real American population is actually moved to. What do you think of that theory?
Well, I'm gonna tell you, John, you're spot on. It's all of the above. And so first, let me address the root causes. There is a way to address the root cause, and obviously Kamala Harris has failed to do that because she has no idea what a root cause is. But I know what the root causes are, and we need to shift the burden that has been placed on the United States back on all of these countries. By the way, let's start with Mexico. I have a beef with Mexico. They are a very corrupt country that have allowed and facilitated the movement of all of these people. By the way, other than Mexicans, these people are illegally present in Mexico, and Mexico has done nothing. I work there. They have very strict immigration laws. They have purposely decided, because they're corrupt, to allow the illegals to come through their country and use their country as a springboard to get into ours. So we need to go after Mexico, Nicaragua, Cuba, Venezuela, and you name them, and put the burden back on them. I think the way you do it is economically, by cutting them off with the aid, and also with the trade that we do with a lot of these countries. We need to negotiate a fine, if you will, with all of these people. For example, if we bring bananas from Nicaragua and it's a multi-billion-dollar trade that we do with them, well, maybe we'll subtract $250,000 per illegal alien that they have allowed to come from their country into ours. Africa nations as well. So we need to shift the burden back on that. But you're absolutely correct. Why is I get this question all the time. What is the core issue of the Biden administration doing this? And I told you all of the above. Yes, it's for votes. Yes, it's for population replacement, and yes, it's for representation. They want to control the House of Representatives. By the way, Biden, as soon as he came into office, one of the first things he did is change the census rules to not to allow them to count illegal aliens as citizens. And you're right, it will change, and they will redistrict these districts around the country. And it's not just New York and Chicago and Georgia. Believe me, it's Denver, Colorado. It's other places you might not think that will do it, but they will do it because the illegals are going everywhere. I personally think that we're just in the last 3 years we've had at least over 15 million illegals come in, because it's not just the numbers that we're counting that they encountered, but we have known gotaways, meaning individuals that we saw come in, but we're not able to detect. And then we have the unknown gotaways. Something that we haven't even talked about yet is the smuggling. My goodness, the smuggling of human beings into this country right now is at an all-time high. Just last month and a half ago in El Paso, Texas, they discovered 270 stash houses of human beings. The same thing in Laredo, Texas. And so the movement of these people is tremendously undetected. And so I talk to border agents all the time, and they tell me, Victor, for every one that we actually encounter, we could probably assume that there's one that got away. So if we have 7 million, you double that number immediately. And that's why you do see these changes in these cities. Obviously, New York is such a big city that it's easier for them to be absorbed. And even though then they're having a difficult time, but you got Tulsa, Oklahoma, you got Tuscaloosa, Alabama, you got Bozeman, Montana, and all of these towns that I have visited and spoken to the officials there and police departments, and it's very noticeable. Let me tell you, they know that all of a sudden we got these communities of people, and then a lot of them don't want to assimilate. And there's this area in Dallas, Texas called Via Dallas, which has been taken over by mostly illegal alien Venezuelans. And we have another one in Colony Ridge, right outside of Houston, Texas. You probably heard of this place. It's a development for basically illegal aliens to live there from all over the world, and kind of a sanctuary within a sanctuary. And so we have a lot of issues with the population. And I think the Biden administration, the ideology, I think, of course, and they literally hate this country, and they will do whatever they can to undermine the Americans of all types. Believe me, this affects everyone from both sides of the aisle. I talk to people all the time. Fentanyl doesn't care what if you're a Republican or a Democrat. It'll kill you. It'll kill your child. And I spoke at a rally for the Lost Voices of Fentanyl a couple of months ago in D.C., and I still had the bias thinking that this was more of a conservative group. No, no. There's a lot of Democrats there that are very upset at this administration for many different levels. Obviously, the fentanyl that's killed their loved one. But the crime, my goodness, there was a 16-year-old cheerleader last month in Texas that was killed by an illegal alien in her bathtub. And these cases happen after day, and no one talks about the victims. No one talks about these angel moms, illegal aliens coming here and committing crimes, DUI, you name it, all across the board. And I say this to people: we need to wake up and do something. Put the pressure at your local level, because if you become a victim of and I pray that you don't, but if you do, it's too late. We're trying to be proactive. I want to be back to being proactive. That's why I'm running for this important position in Congress, because we need to change the way Congress approaches this. By the way, there's a bill that is collecting dust there on the Senate side called HR2 that would end all this at the border. But the Democrats continue to blame the Republicans that we don't do anything about it. Well, the bill's right there. It passed last summer. It's collecting dust, waiting for them to pass it, but they will not pass it because a lot of it obviously is political. It has to do with money for Ukraine, and they have incorporated a lot of other different in there that it makes it very difficult for even some Republicans to pass. But I'm all for Americans first. We need to be able to help our Americans. I'm okay with helping other nations, but we're at the point now where it's okay to be selfish at this point. We need to protect ourselves. We need to protect our communities. Remember what they tell you at the on the airplane. You need to put on your oxygen mask first in order to help someone else. Well, we've been suffocating it economically, crime, and illegal immigration and everything else we've been talking about, and we can't go on. This can happen, and unfortunately, I was just at the border. And let me tell you, to your point, Veronica, what do we do? What do we do? It
Yeah.
is very frustrating right now that they have the control, and it's Border Patrol, it's Texas DPS, it's the National Guard. We're all observing, which kind of is unreal to me, the thousands of people coming up from the river, getting processed and released into our country. By the way, getting on airplanes without any ID. That's one of the first things I'm going to change in
Yeah,
Congress.
try
Oh
that
my
if you're
gosh.
yeah, a regular person. Yeah, Victor, I want to
So
ask you real
so
quick. CD 23 is a pretty close split as far as Democrats and Republicans go, and typically 50% is about a win ratio there. And I gather you're trying to take out Tony Gonzalez, who is a rhino Republican, if there was one around. Uh, how does that? What's the outlook for that? And how can people find you and help your campaign?
Yes, Texas 23 actually has now with the redistrict is an R+5, so it's a little bit more conservative. And yes, I am trying to take out Tony Gonzalez. I don't even think he's a rhino. I think he's a full-blown Democrat. And why do I say that?
Okay.
And let me tell you why. It's because of his votes. I tell people the votes. I'm doing the messaging now. So a lot of voters are not aware, but he voted for January 6th committee. He voted for same-sex marriage on at the federal level twice. He
wow.
killed the Border Security Act single-handedly because he called it unchristian, and then they had to move and absorb some of that stuff into HR2. He voted for drag shows in the military. He voted to restrict our gun rights and for red flag laws, which is a huge no-no in at least in Texas for sure.
Well,
And so this
Florida
guy is
too.
continuing to vote with these huge votes on the left. Yeah, on the left, and and
Wow.
and and people are very upset. Let me tell you, they're angry at him, and I think we have an incredible opportunity to take him out and give the people back the power. Which I don't want the power. I just want the job. I recognize my role as an employee of the government, like I've been all my life. I'm the public servant. The people are the ones that matter here. They will dictate to me what I do in Washington, not anyone else. And you could visit victoravilaforcongress.com and support me there because we're right around the corner from the primary on March 5th.
Well, Victor,
Okay,
you're
maybe we get our
amazing. I
buddy
hope
Alan
you
West to
take
come
it.
help you out.
Yes, but what I wanted to ask you, final question, is you're on the front lines now in New York City, trying to see what's happening when these people land up there. What have you been able to garner from being there on the New York City front lines?
So they're moving them. They're moving them. They're still using the hotels. A lot of them after 7 p.m. start incorporating themselves into the subway system. So even the locals do not get addicted, do not use it. I happen to be here with my family as well. They say during the day, and even yesterday during the day, there was an attack on the subway system. So the crime here is so you have to kind of put it in perspective, right? You come if you come as a tourist and you kind of block everything, you might not be aware of what's going on. But obviously, I come with different eyes and a different mentality here to see
Correct.
what's going on. And all you have to do is pay a little bit of attention. And oh my God, it is very, very noticeable. If you pay, and I tell people this all the time, not just in New York, in your own town, just be a little bit aware. Just be a little bit conscious of what's happening in your community, and you'll be amazed of what you'll find out. Go to your local city council meeting. Go to your county commissioners meeting. Go to a school board meeting. I'm a big advocate for local politics. I know I'm running for Congress, but let me tell you, it starts at your local level. Get involved. Do you even know who represents you? Do you even know who to call? Have you ever had a cup of coffee with your city rep? We have to mobilize. We have to hold them accountable. They're there. They work for us, and I think we're going to change this in November, and that's where my hope comes in, my optimism. I told you my story, and I've been through rough times, and I know that with perseverance and obviously I'm a believer in God, and we can change this, but we do need the help of Americans to step up and say, you know what, I can make a part. You could do it many ways. You could do it by donating. You could do it by volunteering. You could do it by making phone calls, by emailing. You can do something about it. And but in numbers, the left, I think, is a smaller part of the population, but they make a lot of noise. Us conservatives need to really get a lot louder.
Well, Victor, we are Team Victor. God bless you. And to find out more about Victor Avila for Congress.com. And I can't wait till you win it, Victor. We'll be calling. God bless you. And keep up the fight.
Thank you so much for that. Appreciate you guys. Thank you so much.
Thanks
All
a
right.
lot.
Well, we'll be right back on Veronica Live.